I was so new to LA, I didn't know how far Santa Barbara was. And when I was driving to the audition, I realized I was driving an hour. I booked that movie. We lived on the beach of Santa Barbara in tents, and they paid us in food and cigarettes.
Wow.
And I didn't smoke. So they paid us in food and cigarettes, and I didn't even smoke.
It's like prison.
Hey guys, welcome to the Actor's Guide to the End of the World. I'm Ikon Song. This is where we talk about acting in Hollywood in a way people understand. And this is...
Rían Kelly, how you doing?
What's up, buddy?
How are you, man?
We got another episode for you. Wherever you find your podcast, we're on YouTube. We're also on Substack and on all social media at Actors Guide Podcast. So on the show for today, we got the Stay in LA Petition, 15,000 strong, focused on getting production back up and running in LA after the fires. We have Quentin Tarantino has comments coming out of Sundance this week about the state of film, comparing it to theater. And we also talk about our experiences in theater versus film and why we wish we did theater more often.
Also, some of the challenges in being an actor, some of the things that surround it, some of the work you have to do that people never see, that actors have to do just to stay in the game.
And today's show is brought to you by... Tired of looking up at your romantic lead? Need a stepladder to kiss your romantic co-star? Tired of just being Danny DeVito in Twins and not Arnold Schwarzenegger in Twins?
Give yourself a boost with Hollywood Heels insoles. You're going to go from Tom Cruise to Terry Crews, now in Crocs.
So we were just talking about the storm. The storm hit Ireland, and you guys made it out.
We did. Well, we just didn't go anywhere. Yeah, it was good. Good. What am I talking about? It was good. It wasn't good. It was short. The storm itself lasted about a night and into the next day. It was about less than 24 hours. I think like the extreme wind warning was like 2 a.m. to sort of 11, 12. But our power was gone all day. And then a lot of people, hundreds of thousands of people lost power. But some people still don't have power back and a lot of nuts. There was gusts up to like, I think... Was it 180 kilometers an hour gusts recorded in Galway, which is the most that's ever been recorded here. So it was pretty extreme. How's the East Coast? What's happening on the East Coast?
We actually did get gusty winds yesterday. I mean, this sounds so tame. Me and my dad were actually going out to play tennis yesterday, and it literally started gusting up winds, and we're like, yeah, we probably shouldn't play today. That was literally the extreme of our weather. So
sounds rough. Sorry, man. Sorry to hear that.
Not much to report on here in Jersey.
Fair enough. Just a slight disruption to recreational tennis.
Yeah, exactly.
Great that your dad still plays tennis. Fair play to him.
Dude, it's really impressive.
Good for him. He doesn't play pickleball? No, it's full-on tennis?
Swears off pickleball because he's afraid it's going to hurt his tennis game.
Oh, okay.
Which is fair. Yeah, he's very serious.
I've only played street paddle in Venice. So in Venice, down in Venice Beach, there's street paddle courts, which are like short tennis courts. And you use a paddle tennis racket and a regular tennis ball.
It sounds like paddle tennis is literally pickleball, but just with a tennis ball.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah, I think it's a similar racket. I don't know.
I didn't even realize that was a thing.
Yeah. So here's how seriously they take it down there. The courts are free, right? You just walk on. You don't have to book or anything. So there's just free courts down in Venice Beach. Here's a little hidden gem for anybody who's in the
I love this.
Venice area. This is what I always do. I always come up with something cool at the beginning and go, oh, shit, there's my hidden gem.
So that's it.
You just have to get there early. It's basically about getting a time on them or getting space on them when there's no one, when they're not too busy. Weekends, very hard to get a spot. But they only allow pickleball players on, I think it's 2 days a week between like 11 and 1 p.m. There's very certain times that they will allow pickleball players to play. Now, I think they could probably play at other times, but if a paddle tennis player comes in, I think they can ask them to leave, and they are obliged to leave. So
they get priority.
Paddle tennis players get priority over pickleball players. So that's the rivalry we're talking about.
Dude, I love that. I mean, to be honest, paddle tennis is more tennis than pickleball, but I kind of like that pickleball gets at the bottom of the priority list. I kind of like that.
Yeah. Certainly on Venice Beach, they don't like the pickleball.
The Stay in LA petition. We shared this a couple times over the week. There's a brand new petition, 15,000 strong. As of the last posting, it's probably more now. This is a petition focused on getting productions in LA, specifically coming back from the fires and recovering from the fires. So even more of a focus getting productions on here in LA. And it's a grassroots coalition. They're proposing uncapping the tax incentive for productions in LA. So we talked about Newsom was pushing a very large cap late last year. That would already be competitive with Atlanta and the rest of the country. They're proposing uncapping the tax incentive for 3 years as a result from the relief efforts from the fires. It's calling on studios and streamers to pledge at least 10% more production in LA over the next 3 years. So this is huge. This was gaining steam. I saw it popping up. I signed it. We shared it on our social media at least a couple times now. It grew very quickly. In a week, it's 15,000 people, including Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves just signed the list. And you know how much we love Keanu Reeves at the podcast, or more specifically, I love Keanu Reeves. We have
follow him around the city of New York whenever you can.
Yeah. We have LeVar Burton, Keanu Reeves, and LeVar Burton. I mean, how can you really top that? Alison Brie,
Geordie LaForge from Star Trek, for any other nerds out there like myself who grew up in the Next Generation. Yeah, that's how I know LeVar Burton.
That's awesome. I was actually wondering if you knew LeVar Burton.
Oh yeah, I know him from the Next Generation because I used to love Star Trek. All right, happy now?
See, I'm not the only geek. So LeVar Burton, also of Reading Rainbow fame. So that's a huge deal. We're going to put the link in the description, and hopefully you guys can sign in and we get some steam.
Yeah, and also I posted a link on the Actors Guide podcast Instagram page to an article in Variety magazine by an actor that I had the pleasure of working with, who's a lovely fella and a brilliant actor called PJ Byrne. He wrote about bringing production back to LA and tax incentives and everything else. So we'll post a link to that article too, because it's excellent.
Love that. Yeah, that was a great one. Next up, we have some comments. Just came out of Sundance. Tarantino is making the rounds. He actually doesn't have a film in Sundance this year, I believe, but a couple of his interview bits. I believe it was with Elvis Mitchell. He has a Sundance space where he interviews a lot of people, and Tarantino's been making the rounds. There's a video that just got popped up, and it's getting some traction, and he's talking about the value of theater versus films. He basically said, what's the point of a film these days? He didn't use those words, but we're still trying to figure that out. You might have a nice splashy release in a theater for 4 weeks, and then it gets shelved onto Disney or Netflix. And it's in with the other millions of titles that are streaming. And so basically he was kind of lamenting this idea of what the film theater experience is compared to plays, compared to watching theater. It's hard to compete because when you're watching a play, you can't escape anywhere. You're stuck there. They own you, or they own your attention for, an hour and a half, maybe even longer. You don't have your phone out. No distractions, and you're going to be watched, and their intention is to captivate and wow you. This is not that novel. Like, great writers have talked about this before, saying that when they write a film, they're writing something that holds your attention, captivates you, that it demands you not only to not put down your phone for 2 hours, but it demands all of your attention and actually might get you out to the theater, pay for parking, pay for popcorn, and make a day out of it, make a night out of it. And so he brings up a really good point. How many films these days are demanding us to run out to the theater?
Yeah, I think I absolutely agree with him on that. Now, I'm not looking at it from the same perspective as him necessarily, because he's talking about it from, the movies that he's making. He said the last good year for movies was 2019, and he was already unhappy with how things were going then. But absolutely, like, I love going to the cinema for so many reasons. One, because my concentration levels are so shit lately that, like, the cinema is one way that I'm guaranteed to watch the movie that I want to see, because I'm just there in the theater. So It is frustrating, and we talked a bit about it before, about sort of studios pulling the rug on directors and promising them a theatrical release and then releasing it to streaming instead. You know, there's something really special about going to the theater, about going to the cinema. As far as theater goes, there's nothing like it. And I'm guilty because I haven't gone to as much theater as I would like to have, or probably should be going to in the last number of years. Now, I have a bit more recently. Like I talked about it here. Like I went to a play here. I'm going to see a play on Saturday night. I had forgotten because it had been a while. And also living in LA, you're not as inclined to go to theatre, I find. It's not as ingrained into the culture there as it is in other cities like New York, like Dublin, like, you know, London, like all of these other cities. Theatre is more common. Chicago too, great theatre scene in Chicago. So I had gotten a bit complacent in LA, I must say. I think I went to one play in recent memory in LA in the last 2 years maybe. But it's incredible. When you go, you remember how special it is. Like that performance, that particular chemistry of that performance will never be seen again. It was only seen by that audience on that night in real time. You know, there's no video of it. You can't watch it back. You can't, you know, pause it. And I don't know, there's something electric about it. I think it affects you in a different way. It certainly affects me in a different way than watching a movie, or especially watching a movie on TV or on sometimes I'll watch movies on my phone, which is a dreadful way to do that, but it's just to kind of make myself watch them because I've gotten so used to a phone, and that's not how. I don't enjoy that. You know what I mean? I'm not.
Yeah.
You know,
I think and I think that's the push and pull that we have to deal with. This is the landscape of entertainment. It's not the fact that Tarantino is lamenting of the good old days. This is also his passion. This is his industry. It's not too dissimilar from you and I being like, hey, we love acting. We hope to be able to do it for the next 10, 15, 20 years. What is that going to look like? We don't know. This is where the society is going. It's getting harder and harder to get butts in the seats. I'm starting to wonder who the audience is for these things. We talk a lot about theater, and you've been able to see great theater in Dublin. You mentioned this a couple episodes ago. Obviously, we can imagine LA is not exactly New York. When I go to theater in New York, I'm fighting to get tickets that are sold out movie stars, legit movie stars. I mean, Keanu Reeves is, well, of course, he's just top of mind. Keanu Reeves is literally doing a Broadway play. Kieran Culkin, Bob Odenkirk, and Bill Burr are literally about to do Glengarry Glen Ross.
my buddy, my pal, John Piratello is in that.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I can't wait.
If I can, I'm going to try and go see him in it. Because,
yeah, dude, let me know because I'm gonna try to be over there too.
Yeah.
So this is my point. Broadway is big box office movie stars. This is the limit. That's how much money there is. People are sold out houses are paying $150+ a ticket. So who's their audience? It's mostly rich, older, mostly white people. So what I'm worried about is theater is pricing people out where it's not as accessible. Good theater. I'm worried about who the movie theater is for in the future.
I agree with you on who is the audience for theater, and it is expensive, and that does price people out. I think it's incumbent on people then to sort of make their own stuff. This is what I saw with the play that I went to recently in Dublin. That was a play kind of for everybody and designed, you know, for everybody to get people into the theater. The play I'm going to on Saturday night, tickets are €22. It's not, we're not talking 50, 75, 100. So there is that theater there. The problem I hear from a lot of actors, or the reason that they don't do more theater, is because it just doesn't pay well enough. It doesn't suit them as much. I personally love the process of TV and film. I get such a buzz out of all of it. But I also love doing theater, and I've been the same way. I haven't pursued theater in the last however many years in the same way because it just doesn't pay as well, you know? And it's not that I don't enjoy it, I really do. But it's a different it's a different type of a discipline it takes to do theatre. It's a different experience, I find, being on stage with an audience live. And as much as I love TV and film, and I really, really do, I have to admit that some of my best jobs ever have been theatre. You know, I got to tour Europe early on in my career with a theatre company, an Irish theatre company, and go to like Germany, Switzerland, Denmark, Austria. I did this amazing tour, and with a small cast of, you know, there's 4 of us in the cast, and the director was also in the cast, and he had arranged this tour year after year. So it was just so, you know, we sort of jumped on board and got on this tour, and it was just so special, and I didn't even appreciate it at the time, you know. Wow. Because you're getting to see all of Europe, you're working. I was young, like I was in my like early or mid 20s maybe, and I didn't even understand how special that was, and it was just, it was a blast, you know.
How did you afford traveling around for 3 months? I'm assuming they were paying your board and all that.
Oh, it was paid. It was pretty well paid. I think at the time it was like $500 a week, which was good. At the time was good wages. All of our accommodation obviously was covered. I mean, I think we had per diems and everything else. But so I actually made it was not bad for a 24-year-old to just a couple years in acting. No, absolutely.
It's not so much that the money is too low. It's not as feasible or practical necessarily to do that now when you're not 24 years old.
Yeah, it depends on the job, I think, and it depends on where it is.
The first experience that I really had, I was fresh out, had no experience, no acting, literally didn't know anything. I was so new to LA, I didn't know how far Santa Barbara was. And when I was driving to the audition, I realized I was driving an hour, and I had no idea how far. I had no idea where I was. I booked that movie, met amazing friends who all graduated from fancy NYU film schools. They paid us. We lived on the beach of Santa Barbara in tents, and they paid us in food and cigarettes.
Wow.
And I didn't smoke, so they paid us in food and cigarettes, and I didn't even smoke. So my point is,
it's like prison.
Yeah. I was working at Urban Outfitters, and I took off 2 months to live on the beaches of Santa Barbara. Okay? Enjoy it. We had so much fun. You have to do that when you're 24. But I would never do that again. As much as I had these lifelong friends that are, first of all, really successful actors. That movie never got finally edited, never got released. Okay?
Oh, God.
But this is that we still joke around about editing that film.
Yeah.
But that's my point, where it was about the experience, it was about the people, it was about being in your 20s again. And that's one of those jobs that it's a no-brainer, yes, when you're 24.
Absolutely. And I think that especially for younger actors and when you're starting out, like, take anything. You know what I mean? Get any experience you can. I did a bunch of student films like here in Ireland. I did them in Chicago. But you're dead right. When you have rent and bills to think about, and I don't have a family to support, exactly. That's another consideration. So
this is the time to really get out there.
Absolutely. And I do hear people talk about how people who come from a lot of money have a leg up in this industry because they can afford to, you know, they maybe have support while they're looking for work, and that makes a big difference when you're working, you know, 40, 50 hours a week at a bar job or a service industry job or whatever it is, and you're tired from that, you're trying to pay your rent and bills, you're also trying to audition. This, for anybody who doesn't know, this is an expensive career to be in, just with all the things that surround it. I mean, you have classes, you have headshots, you have membership of all these casting websites, which is another issue that we might be able to dig into at some point. Sometimes I think if somebody had to do multiple job interviews every week, you know, and then get a job for 2 days, and then they had to go back to doing those job interviews. Like, we don't get paid for auditions, you know. Like, it's you spend a lot of your time and energy just trying to acquire work,
and acquire skills.
Absolutely, because you have to be good.
A great point. We're a business, and if we're going to look at ourselves as a business, we think about the investment, The investment early on in our careers is time, a lot of time, a good amount of all of our money. We're paying rent and we're also paying for headshots and all, and we're getting very little in return. But as a business, what can we do to procure more business? It's social media, branding, knowing headshots and knowing how to cast yourself, and also making sure you're good and getting skills. We have to do all of that. And unless you're a trust fund kid, you're losing money for the first 5 years of your career. And that's normal.
Absolutely. I was watching an Instagram story from a good pal of mine who's a brilliant actor. You know him as well, Mickey O'Sullivan. And Mickey is a guy who I've always admired in the way that he approaches life in general. But the way he approaches acting has always been with such a curious kind of a mind. How can he do this better? How can he learn this skill? And he was talking about how actors are athletes, basically, and how you put in all this, you know, there's a lot of risk involved in this. You know, you have to put in a ton of work. There's not a lot of job prospects in this industry. And talking about trust fund kids, you know, I can't afford to be resentful at that. I mean, good for them. Like, what a blessing that they have the money to be able to do it. So I can't. It doesn't serve me to be resentful at anybody for their circumstances.
Athlete thing, because we talked a little bit about this when we were talking about the Oscar nominations and award shows, but back to this athlete thing, Leslie Kahn also brings up this metaphor a lot, and I think it's really important. You and I both grew up playing sports, and it's very something that helps a lot of people understand. The work is intense, requires a lot, and you can't buy your way into it. It's like someone can have some advantages. A lot of people can have advantages. Someone could have a 4-second 40 time, or someone could be 6'5". There are a lot of built-in advantages, and I think you always had a great mindset and attitude where it's not our job to be resentful. It's our job to be in control of what we can control and work our butts off. And, you know, being a great actor and being able to do the work and having the mindset of staying in the game, that's going to be really intense work regardless of how much money you have. One person wins an Oscar, and only one team wins the Super Bowl.
I know that actors feel a lot of pressure from outside of them because it's one of those jobs that everybody kind of has an opinion on. You know what I mean? Like, people, if you say you're an actor, someone will go, what have I seen you in? You know what I mean? Where it doesn't translate the other way. If someone goes, I'm an accountant, you wouldn't go like, what numbers do you use that I would know? Or whatever it is, you know, whatever the equivalent is.
This is so good. I feel like in society, because of social media, because we're getting in touch with so much information immediately, I feel like ultimately with the internet, everyone is suddenly becoming an expert on everything. Like when we talked about Bill Burr and the fires, and he was saying like suddenly everyone's a fire expert. I completely agree with you. We get the shit out of the stick because our job is not only to do something difficult when you have 5 lights and 25 camera crews, 25 cameramen and crew members in front of you, and you're having an intimate scene with one other person. We're trying to do something very weird and odd, but make it look easy. A lot of people look at what film and TV and what actors do, and they joke around and they have so much fun, and they think it's easy that anybody can do that. I think we always had a magnifying glass on us because the few people that make it get way too much money, way too much fame, and this is the job that we get into. But I watch a lot of NFL. I'm an Eagles fan. Go Birds. I watch a lot of football stuff. And I feel like sports and athletes, to go back to the metaphor, how many people watching at home who can't jump over a piece of paper are screaming and yelling, what's the matter with you? How'd you miss that ball? How could you not catch that?
Yeah.
So I see the parallels, but it's funny how this is what we're asking for. We're asking to get the ball, and we're asking for the spotlight. But, you know, I'm not asking for sympathy, but, I mean, this is the reality of the situation.
No, you're dead right. And it's also something that people, I don't know how many people, I couldn't tell you how many people over the years have said to me, I think I'd be good at that. I think I'd be a good actor. And you're like, okay. Based on what? You know what I mean? Like, or even the other one is, are you still trying to be an actor? That one used to drive me fucking crazy. Are you still trying to be an actor? And it doesn't help when you're like working, 2 other jobs and you're struggling with your own self-esteem as well, and you're like, this fucking ass.
This is actually really great because it made me think of something that we talked only briefly about last episode, but it is nice to dig into it. The difference is art, and this is kind of like why we love it and why we get into it. The beauty of art and beauty of film and TV and acting is it is really subjective. Like for people not in the industry, they're trying to grasp onto something that they know they don't really understand, but also it's really subjective. Meaning, what is trying to become an actor? They don't know. And so I think going back to the whole athlete metaphor, it's really helpful because I put in this many hours of practice and rehearsal on my skills every week, or at least tried to make it practical and real world versus, I went to the beach. I read a couple scripts. I posted a couple things on the internet. And yeah, that actually brings up a really interesting point. What does an actor do when they're quote unquote trying to become an actor? I think it's actually kind of, even that's really subjective too. About this, most of life is a meritocracy. You work hard in school, you get good grades, you maybe go to a good college, you maybe get a good job. And I think I knew that stuff was unfulfilling to me, but also I wanted to challenge and see if I could deal with this crazy life as an actor where you may make it, you may work your butt off, or you work your butt off and you may never make it, never get any success. And are you okay with that? Can your ego handle that? And are you going to become a better person and more fulfilled person afterwards?
Yeah, and it's an interesting term, making it, because that's very subjective in and of itself. What does
exactly.
making it, in quotes, mean to you? Or like, there's a lot of actors, I think, sort of there's a misconception that if you don't know who an actor is, they're not working or they haven't made it. Where there are actors out there who work nonstop, particularly in TV, who are just flat out working. But you've never heard
also commercials.
Totally, commercials. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many areas in this industry where people just make a living, and
but I wanted to dig into this a little bit. For me, because I didn't grow up early on with the theater experience, I graduated in math and econ, and at the end, and
still
of course,
hilarious
for people just tuning in, my name's Econ, and I actually was an econ major. I did a couple we did a couple shows in college. It was basically like comedy sketches. We wrote, directed all of it. As much as I got a buzz off of that, I so much get more of a buzz on a film and TV set, and also personally creating my own projects. I'd rather edit for 15 hours rather than being working a theater show 3-4 nights a week. A lot of people, it's one versus the other, but you actually sound like you love both of them. So
I do.
Yeah.
I do. And you're right, they are very different. So the first thing I ever did was a short film when I was in college. And I've always been fascinated by film. So my granddad, my mum's dad, was a journalist, but he also worked for the Irish Tourist Board. And he was involved in bringing film investment to Ireland. So he actually did the deal to he would scout locations, and he would try and attract particularly American film companies to film in Ireland. So he actually, the movie Ryan's Daughter, which was shot in Ireland, he was the one who actually got the location for that movie, which was Dunquin in Kerry, County Kerry, where my grandmother lived for a long time before she died. So I was aware of film, the idea of film. I used to make things with a camcorder when I was very young, sort of 10, 11, 12. And I loved the idea of putting film together. So I was always fascinated with film. Like I said, I would do stop motion animation stuff with a friend of mine. And he's a really talented animator. So I had this idea of I loved the process of film. So I was kind of fascinated by that. First thing I ever did acting wise, really, I did 2 lines in a play in high school, which I made a balls of. My 2 lines, 1 line. I remember what it was. I remember the line and I fucked it up.
You actually screwed it up?
I screwed it up. There was a play, 15-minute Hamlet. I got the smallest part imaginable. I think it was the ghost. You know what I mean? The ghost that like says something. And my line was, "Look where sadly the poor wretch comes reading," or something. Or yeah, "Look where sadly the poor wretch comes reading." But I had to kind of run across the stage and say that. But instead I said, "Look where sadly the poor wretch comes running," because I was running. That's how bad it was.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, you were 15 years old, right? What were you?
Probably 16.
Okay.
No, it could have been 15 actually. That's true.
And I don't know if I ever told you this. I understudied a play for the first time in LA. Oh, it was actually during the pandemic. An old friend, he's a very successful playwright. Oh my God, it comes full circle. I know him from the movie on the beach in Santa Barbara. So we did the movie on the beach in Santa Barbara. He was one of them. And to this day, we're still
You're trading
friends.
cigarettes with everybody.
Exactly. He calls me up after the blue. He's like, "Hey, Econ, we're doing a play. I know that you're not a real theater guy. We need an understudy. This is just COVID protection. It doesn't pay that much. It's literally peanuts. You're probably not ever going to need to go up, but we just need a COVID backup." Literally, the theater was 5 minutes away from me. I told him I'm sold.
All right.
I have no idea what the experience is for understudy. Never done a play. For those couple weeks of rehearsals, I was the only understudy that was there, trying to be like, what the heck is going on? Meeting all the actors. I was watching all the rehearsals. There was a moment where possibly I might go on. So they needed to do an understudy rehearsal. They needed to do an understudy rehearsal because also some of the understudies were going to go on too. This was my big moment to act. They're like, "Who's this dude who's just watching the rehearsals? And we're finally going to see him act after three weeks. I mean, he could shit the bed, right?" On stage for the rehearsal, and the lead actor goes to me. We're just chatting. He goes, "Oh, so have you done a lot of theater?" I go, "Dude, I've never been on a stage before. We do the handful of scenes. I give it a whirl. Production manager comes up to me afterwards. He goes, "Econ, that was fantastic. You put so much work into it, and it shows." And I'm like, I did not need to go on. But my point is that was the only bite of a theater experience. I can officially retire my illustrious stage career. I would have loved to be hanging out with, goofing off with those people 3 nights a week and, going out to the bars afterwards.
That's great, dude.
That was it.
You should do a play. You should do a play.
I'm actually not against it. I'm not against it.
I will say in film, and this occurred to me as well, you have to let go of a lot more in film, I think, because in a play there's a lot of power in theater because you're on stage, you're with another actor. You can hopefully be as prepared as possible and then see what happens. And there's a certain amount of letting go in that because you have to be listening and present, and the audience will contribute or whatever. But in film, there's so many people involved. You're a small part of this process, and you have no control and no say over how it turns out, how it's edited, what takes they use. So there is a lot more letting go in film. In theater,
a lot of trust.
A lot of trust. Yeah, totally. Yeah. And that's one of the things I do love about it. It's such a collaborative effort, and you really don't know how it's going to turn out. And you're always hopeful it's going to be amazing. And you're always hopeful that, your performance comes across okay, or, it's very hard. You can't really be self-aware while you're doing it, even though it is very technical. It's a real dance between all of these skills you've learned over the years and all of the technical side is letting go of that in the moment and trying to not be self-aware of your performance as it's happening, but also knowing that you can't move your head this much, and you can't, there are certain things you can't, you're restricted by the camera, by the frame, and sound and everything else and blocking. And so it's a very technical thing, but I kind of love that side of it too.
This is why all the great actors, obviously they're biased. Denzel Washington, Jeff Daniels, obviously they're hardcore. They're saying, get on stage, get on stage, get on stage. But this is another great point that we should probably get that across. The theater is probably the only place where an actor has power, because the way that they say it is film is a director's medium, which is fair. And it's so different now where we can almost say it's a director's editor's medium, right? Because obviously it's mostly digital and you're creating the final cut. They say TV is a writer's medium. Makes sense, right? Because a TV director, I mean, you're basically doing the 20th episode of 350 episodes. And then theater is the actor's medium. So I think that's if there's no bigger plug than doing theater for actors, it's that. It's probably the last time where it's probably the one medium where actors have the most power. It's on the tip of my tongue. When you're like describing the difference, I want to say this is Meryl Streep. Meryl Streep has the most iconic quote about the difference between theater and film. She said theater is sex and then film is masturbation.
I don't know about that. I don't know.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
I get that. The experience of acting in theater versus acting in film, I 100% get that. As much as I respect and love film, the difference is when does the audience participate in it? In a play, the audience is participating literally in real time, in the same moment, in the same room. And then for film and TV, it's a year and a half later when it comes out on Netflix. And so, obviously, she's joking, but I mean, I still love film. And, you know, you're still intimately acting with a camera, but I just think it's really funny.
It's the other thing about this career that I love is that there's so much variation in it. Like, I don't know what I'm going to be doing from job to job, week to week, day to day often. And I love that anything can come. This is why I love emails now, because anything can come in the it's usually like auditions come through email. So anything can come that way. And like you don't know what's next. And I get so excited when my like email notification goes up. Because it could be anything. And I love the fact that I get to do film and TV and and theater as well. And when I moved to Chicago, I just set myself up to do film and TV because it's kind of what I had more of an interest in. So I set my life up that way. So, I was bartending at night. I was keeping my days free to audition for film and TV. And maybe I missed out on a lot of theater by doing that.
I just want to highlight that when we say yes to something, we are saying no to something. Those are the challenges. A lot of actors, they delay having a family. They delay settling down because they know, hey, this is where my focus is. And we ultimately have to say no to certain things. And we just want to live our lives in a way where we're not second guessing or having regrets afterwards. So I love this quote. It's from Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning. Live life as if it's the second time and you screwed it up the first. And so
let me think about this. Okay.
Yeah. So that's actually a paraphrase. His was much more kind of like poetic and eloquent. Right. I remember this because Hugh Jackman was doing an interview on Tim Ferriss, and he quoted this, but he paraphrased it that way.
Trying to get my head around it. Okay, go on. You tell me what it means, or what's your interpretation of it.
You have the freedom to live in the now, and you have the it's almost like freedom and permission.
Yeah.
I have the freedom and permission. Oh, this is really blowing your mind. The fact that we have.
It is. I want to understand this. I want to understand it. So
I thought that you actually already heard this before, but
no, I didn't.
It's almost like Back to the Future. It's almost like that freedom where it's like I can do something now, and I'm living in this beautiful life where I can recorrect from mistakes that I made the first time. Yeah. So just imagine getting a second shot at something. Let's say you have you're shooting a free throw to win the game. What happens if you got a second shot? It's kind of exciting, right? What happens if you get another crack at the apple? Would you do anything differently? Would you ask that girl out? Would you quit your job and go do that theater job? I mean, who knows?
Okay. So here's a live as if you were living already for the second time, and as if you had acted the first time as wrongly as you are about to act now.
Exactly. It's confusing that way, right? Actually, we might have to bring that back for another episode because Hugh Jackman was kind of going off on this. And he was talking a lot about it in Tim Ferriss, and he had a lot of really brilliant mindset things that he talked about that was very similar to this. So we might bring this back, but that's a really famous quote. The way you got a second shot, enjoy it, and don't hold anything back.
You know what? I love that. someone has likened it to the movie About Time. Have you seen that movie?
I actually haven't.
It is stunning. It's a brilliant movie. Donald Gleason is in it and Bill Nighy, and it's basically about the concept of time. Like I won't ruin the movie, but it's a brilliant movie.
We're gonna pin this for the next time. But either way, that movie could also be a hidden gem for you.
Absolutely, that's 2 hidden gems. Hidden gems.
Speaking
guys.
of, let's get to hidden gems. Gems.
Hidden gems flying out of me today, guys, based on words that have come out of my mouth already in this episode. Hidden gem number 1, paddle tennis courts in Venice Beach, California. If you have never played, get down there. They're free. You're better off getting them on a weekday because there are less people around. But there's paddle tennis courts. You can pick up a paddle racket for relatively cheap and a tennis ball. And go down there and just have a wild time for yourself smashing that ball over that small net and in that small court.
Beautiful.
The second one is the movie About Time. If anybody hasn't seen it, I'd highly recommend it. It's
I would check it out.
An excellent movie from a good few years ago now with a young Donald Gleason, and Bill Nighy is in it, and Rachel McAdams is in it, and as is Margot Robbie. So all
wow.
It's got a great cast.
Quite the cast.
So About Time. And
nice.
Paddle tennis in Venice Beach, California for free. Not
right,
pickleball, guys. All right? Your fancy whistling pickleball.
A lot of cities are complaining pickleball's too loud with the wiffle ball just smacking back and forth.
Because it's kind of like a thwack sound of it. And
it's a horrible sound. It's a horrible sound. Anyway, so my hidden gem, we've been talking about theater and we've been talking about trying to make them affordable. I'm amazed that out of all the times I've been talking about trying to get cheap theater tickets, I haven't discovered this app. A friend told me about it. A friend in New York, Andrew Oshanik.
Love Andrew. Lovely fella.
Yep. Good old Andrew from class.
Big fan.
The theater app, THEATR, no E for some reason.
Because it's
secondhand theater tickets. It's like StubHub, but for theater. Ooh. I know, good God, how did I not know this before? I'm literally getting buzzes for last-minute tickets that are discounted and cheap. These people are selling the tickets that they're trying to get rid of. It's the most brilliant thing. I haven't even knew it was a thing until Andrew told me. I was like, how did I not know this before? Anyway, so that's our hidden gems. Of course you would know that.
Of course, I know. Broadway actor Andrew Oshanik would know that.
Exactly. Broadway's finest.
Absolutely.
So that is our hidden gems, folks. And there we have it. Another great episode. Thanks, Rían. Hope you enjoy it. Leave us a comment. Hit us up on social media at Actors Guide Podcast. And we'll see you next week.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. See you then.
Well, thanks for watching, guys. If you like what you saw, maybe give a like, maybe subscribe. It helps people find the podcast. Also, if you didn't catch last week's episode, it's right over here. Don't worry. We'll wait.